Millionaire falls in love at first sight with the bridesmaid who was late to his friend's wedding. Hi, my beautiful family. How's your heart doing today? If life's been a little too loud or your soul feels a bit tired, I've got just the thing. Today, I'm bringing you a story that reminds us how one unexpected moment can change everything. So grab a blanket, settle in, and let's step into a world where a late bridesmaid, a quiet billionaire, and a single glance turn into something neither of them ever saw coming. The sound of high heels echoed urgently across the cool marble floors of the Ashcroft Grand Hotel, one of San Francisco's most exclusive venues. Anna Bennett rushed through the grand lobby, her heart pounding louder than her steps. She was late, laughably late for the wedding of her best friend, Natalie. And of course, her phone had just died. The elevator? Out of service. Naturally, with no time to curse her luck, Anna gathered her layered ivory dress and darted toward the staircase. Not ideal attire for climbing 6 flights, but choices were limited. She murmured apologies to no one in particular as she ascended, curls flying wildly around her face, breath catching beneath lipstick that had already begun to fade. The confident woman who left the house this morning. A distant memory, but she didn't care. Natalie had been there for Anna through every breakup, every tight deadline, every sleep-deprived night in the creative world. Anna had to be here. Even if the cab had broken down on the Golden Gate Bridge, she would have found a way. She was nearly at the final flight when it happened. Bam! She slammed into something, or rather, someone. A solid, unmoving someone, not a wall. A man. He was tall, toweringly tall. As Anna stumbled back, her heel caught on the edge of a stair. Time slowed. But before she could fall, strong hands gripped her waist and pulled her upright in one swift, practiced motion. Her face stopped inches from his chest, where a scent of sandalwood, cool mint, and something darker clung to his skin. She held her breath, this time not from exhaustion. I'm so sorry, she blurted, stepping back quickly, clutching at her dress as if it could erase the moment. Her eyes lifted, met his, and her words froze. Handsome didn't quite cover it. He was striking, the kind of face you hesitate to look at too long. Dark hair cropped close, charcoal gray eyes beneath sharp brows, and a jawline that looked chiseled from stone. He wore a deep gray suit, tailored to perfection, a minimalist watch just visible beneath the cuff. He looked at her, not with annoyance, as she expected, but with curiosity. "You okay?" His voice was low, smooth, controlled, not cold. Anna nodded, far too quickly. Yes, just stairs, rushing, wrong turn." She stopped. What was she even saying? He tilted his head, eyes still on her. "Do you always make an entrance like this?" The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close enough to send a flutter through her stomach. She looked away, her cheeks blazing. "Only on very special occasions," she muttered, brushing imagined dust from her dress, trying to salvage some dignity. She stepped toward the railing, but he didn't move away. He shifted only slightly, as if debating whether to let her go. "You're late," he said, not judgmental, just stating a fact. She blinked. "You noticed?" He gave a faint smile this time. Hard not to. Anna exhaled, part nerves, part relief. Then, without another word, she hurried up the remaining steps, not daring to look back. She didn't hear his footsteps behind her, and when Anna slipped quietly into the ceremony hall, the wedding had already begun. Sunlight flooded the ceremony hall like a soft golden veil, casting a warm glow over everything it touched. Pastel gowns shimmered, black tuxedos gleamed under the vaulted windows. Anna slid into the last row, drawing in a deep breath to calm the rapid drumming in her chest. She had made it, but her heartbeat hadn't caught up. Her eyes immediately sought the altar, where Natalie stood radiant beside her groom. Her friend's eyes sparkled, lips trembling slightly as she recited her vows. Anna tried to focus, tried to stay present, but something strange pressed at her awareness, like the feeling of being watched. She glanced right. No one. Left. Still nothing. Then, almost instinctively, her gaze drifted to the front rows. He was there. The man from the stairwell. Julian. Black suit, slim tie, hand resting lightly on one knee, posture casual, as if the world always adjusted itself to his presence. But his eyes weren't on the altar. They were on her, not invasive, not obvious, but with a kind of still, measured attention that made her feel seen. Calm, intentional. Like she was a painting he didn't need to rush to understand. Anna turned forward quickly, her cheeks heating again. Her heart beat faster, her chest tightening. Who is this man? She leaned toward the woman beside her and whispered, "Do you know who that is sitting next to the groom?" The woman arched a brow. "You mean Julian West?" Anna swallowed. The name sounded familiar. "Should I?" The woman looked genuinely surprised. "You don't? He's the CEO of West Capital, one of the most influential men on the West Coast. Never gives interviews, never appears with anyone. Practically a myth." Anna looked forward again, her pulse now thunderous in her ears. Julian West. Of course, she'd heard the name. In business reports, investor meetings, whispers of a man too powerful to be present. A man who didn't belong to her world. And yet, he was still watching her. A strange tension settled in Anna's chest, like a string had been pulled tight between them. Thin, invisible, real. No words, no touch. And yet something was happening. She forced herself to focus on Natalie's vows, but Julian's presence filled the space around her like a spotlight, like she was on stage, and he was the only audience. When the crowd rose for the final blessing, Anna felt his eyes again. When they clapped for the newlyweds, she stole one glance forward. He was still looking. Still. Calm. Intent. As if she was a question he hadn't yet answered. And when he finally turned his head to speak to someone beside him, Anna exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for far too long. She didn't believe in love at first sight, but something had shifted. She knew it. She could feel it. And somehow, she knew this wasn't the end of the story. The reception hall opened like a different world, warm and glowing, lit by golden chandeliers and the soft clink of champagne glasses. Guests mingled in small clusters, their voices rising in easy laughter, heels whispering against the marble floors. Anna stood near a column, glass of water in hand, keeping her distance from both the dance floor and the bar. She had done her part, spoken to Natalie, smiled through the introductions, survived the awkward small talk. Now she just wanted stillness. But even in stillness, she felt him. Julian hadn't approached. Not yet. But his presence pressed against her like gravity. Subtle, steady, impossible to ignore. Every time she turned, her pulse stumbled, and every time she spotted him at a distance, his gaze found her like it had been there all along. Then it happened. Again. She turned too quickly, trying to exit a conversation, and collided with someone. Wine spilled instantly, deep red, blooming across black fabric like a rose unfolding. Oh my God! Anna froze. The man looked down at his suit. Of course, him, Julian West, his perfect suit now drenched in Merlot. He looked up, calm, unreadable. "Do you always bump into people?" he asked. "Or is it just a wedding thing?" Anna blinked. Then, unexpectedly, let out a breathy, helpless laugh. "Apparently, I have a gift for disaster," she muttered, handing him a napkin. He took it, but made no move to clean the stain. Just stood there, glass still in hand, eyes still on her. "I was hoping we'd speak again," he said, voice lower than before. She paused. "You were?" Not many people crash into me. Even fewer walk away without letting me say anything." "I apologized," she countered. He gave a half smile. "But you left before I could answer." Confusion and curiosity flared inside her. Maybe I didn't think there was anything else to say. "There always is," he said smoothly, then gestured to a nearby stool. "Care to sit? You owe me a conversation. I owe you dry cleaning. I can afford new suits. Good company? That's harder to find." She studied him. Then she sat. That's a dangerously charming line for someone they call cold as ice. Julian chuckled, low, brief, and real. "So you've heard the rumors?" "They're hard to miss, especially when people whisper them like you might hear." He leaned in slightly. "And what do you believe?" She took a sip of wine, met his eyes. "I believe the most powerful people are often the loneliest, and the lonelier they are, the more afraid they are to feel." Julian didn't smile, but something in his eyes darkened, deepened. "And you?" he asked softly. "What are you hiding behind all that wit and clumsiness?" She hesitated. No one ever asked her that, especially not this quickly. "I'm not hiding," she said carefully. "I'm just not used to being read so fast." He smirked faintly. "Fair enough." A pause, not awkward, but thick. "Creative direction," she said suddenly. "That's what I do. I'm not just a bridesmaid with no last name." Julian nodded. "Anna Bennett, born in Seattle, moved here 7 years ago. Graduated top of her class at Stanford, now creative director at Lycia Studio, currently leading the brand strategy for Sterling Tech." Her eyes widened. "You Googled me?" He met her gaze. "No, I read the investor files." She blinked. "Wait, you're—" He gave a slow nod. "I'm Sterling's lead investor." She carefully set her wine down, pulse rising. "So, you knew who I was back on the stairs?" "No," he said gently. "Not then, but I wanted to." She didn't know if she should feel seen or ambushed. "I don't know what you're trying to do," she murmured, "but I'm not someone you pursue just because I tripped into you." His eyes didn't flinch. "You think I do this often?" "I think men like you don't have to ask." He leaned in, not touching, but close enough to change the air between them. "I don't chase," he said quietly, "but I am persistent." Anna stood abruptly. "I should go." He didn't stop her, but his voice followed. "Anna." She turned. "You have more effect on people than you realize." Then he turned back to the bar, and Anna stood there, surrounded by people, feeling like someone had just seen too much of her. Julian looked at Anna like he was trying to measure something within her, not with judgment, but with a quiet, patient kind of curiosity. He didn't smile much, didn't posture, didn't try to dominate the space. But his eyes, they didn't leave her. Anna felt like her skin was being read, line by line, beneath that gaze. It wasn't the look of a man seeking conquest. It was something deeper, studious, intent. As if she was something different, something that didn't belong in the polished world he normally ruled. And strangely, it was her awkwardness, her unfiltered honesty, that seemed to pull him in. She knew she was rambling. She knew her cheeks were flushed. She knew she was trying too hard to mask the storm inside with calm. But Julian never looked away, and that unsettled her even more, because for the first time in a long time, she couldn't control how someone saw her. He didn't see polish. He didn't see title. He saw her, and that, God help her, made Anna want to walk away, but also stay just a moment longer. The music softened into smooth jazz, slower, warmer, as if the evening itself had decided it was time for stillness. Couples drifted toward the dance floor, their steps light beneath the chandelier's golden glow. Anna stood alone, near a column draped in soft white fabric and twinkling lights. She no longer touched her wine. just held a glass of water, pretending to sip. Inside, her mind was racing, replaying every glance, every word, every moment where she felt too clearly seen. She wasn't looking for Julian, but she couldn't deny. She felt him, and then he stepped onto the floor. Not to dance, not yet. He stood at the edge, scanning the room like a man used to making careful selections. When his eyes met Anna's, nothing stood between them now. No friends, no noise, no excuses. He walked toward her, one step, then another, unhurried, certain. She could have left, slipped into the bathroom, fled to the balcony. But she didn't move. Julian stopped in front of her, extended his hand. Not a command, not a plea, not a performance. "Dance with me." Anna looked at his hand a second too long. Her heart thudded. Her first instinct was to deflect, to hide behind wit. But instead, she said nothing. She set her glass down and placed her hand in his. His hand was warm, steady, assured. He led her through the quiet, through dim lights and murmurs, until they were among the other couples, surrounded but apart. He turned to her, placed his hand gently on her waist. Not too close, not too far, just enough to feel safe and to feel exposed. The first few steps were stiff. Anna kept her eyes down, focused on not stepping on his shoes, her body tense. She didn't like surrendering control. She didn't trust easily. "Relax," Julian murmured, voice low near her ear. "I won't let you fall." That made her look up. Their eyes met, and suddenly the room fell away. No more music, no more laughter, no clinking glasses, just the quiet between them, the rhythm of shared steps, his hand on her waist, and the feeling like he was holding all of her. They didn't speak, and in that silence, something sacred lived. Not awkward, not empty, but full, of tension, of meaning, of everything unspoken. Every turn, every breath, every inch of space yet untouched carried a question neither dared ask. "Who are you beneath all that calm? Why do I feel like I've always known you? Why does this feel like a beginning I never saw coming?" Anna began to soften. Her shoulders eased, her breath steadied. Her steps matched his, not out of submission, but out of trust. Julian didn't smirk, didn't flirt. He just watched, not like a man who takes, but like one who wants to see. To be seen, not as a role, not as a resume, but as a whole person, left Anna breathless. He leaned in slightly. "You surprise me." She looked up. "Why?" "Because you're not trying, not to impress me, not to win, not to steer the conversation. Most people do." Her throat tightened. Something deep, something tired inside her stirred. "I don't want to impress you," she said quietly. "I don't even know what this is." "Neither do I," Julian answered. "But somehow, that makes it feel safer." Another turn, another song began. His hand shifted slightly on her back. Closer, warmer. She didn't react, but her body did. Not desire. Something deeper. A recognition, like two people who'd stood on opposite sides of the same question their whole lives. And now they were just steps away from an answer. Anna closed her eyes, and for the first time, she let herself feel. Time flies to that Monday. The sky hung heavy with fog above San Francisco, as if the city itself knew something was coming. Anna returned to work with the mindset of someone trying to forget a dream. Beautiful, but fleeting. The wedding, the dance, that look beneath soft lighting, it all belonged in the corner of memory now. Just a moment, one night, a man she would never see again. That's what she told herself, over and over as she walked into Lycia's studio. A new week, a major campaign. Sterling Tech had just expanded their branding budget, and she was the lead. No room for distractions. "Conference room, 10 minutes, her colleague reminded her. "Someone new from Sterling will be there." She nodded. Everything felt normal. Until she walked into that room. The door shut behind her, and at the head of the table, in a tailored gray suit, sat Julian West, the man who had danced with her, read her, whispered to her beneath the chandeliers. He sat calmly, eyes focused on the screen, and when their eyes met, he didn't react. No nod, no smile, not even a flicker of recognition, as if she were a stranger. "This is Mr. Julian West," the manager introduced, "our newest investor and now the direct liaison on the Sterling project." Julian nodded politely to the room, offering a perfect professional smile. Anna took her seat, fingers gripping her pen so tight her knuckles whitened. She said nothing, but inside, something sharp twisted. What was he doing? Pretending she meant nothing? After that night, Julian presented his ideas: brand vision, emotional engagement, authenticity in user experience. Every word landed like a stone, not because of the pitch, but because of the performance. She felt discarded, controlled, and the fire building in her chest was far too familiar. The meeting ended. Colleagues filed out. Anna remained, gathering her notes, until his voice cut through. "Ms. Bennett, a moment?" She stood straight, eyes locked on his, no more hiding. "What do you want?" Julian didn't answer right away. He stepped closer. His expression softened, but his voice stayed steady. "You're acting. Very well, but I don't need that." She scoffed. "I'm not acting. I'm working. You're the one pretending we don't know each other." He didn't deny it, just looked at her, long and hard. "We both know what happened that night was real," he said, his voice low. "If you choose to ignore it, I'll respect that, but I can't pretend it didn't matter." Silence. So many things she wanted to say, to demand, to shout. But only one question came out. "Why?" Julian drew a breath, then quietly. "Because I don't want what happened between us to get twisted by titles, by status, or by who's sitting at the head of a boardroom." She walked out, not because she had nothing to say, but because if she stayed, the truth might slip out too easily. As her hand touched the knob, his voice followed. "I want the truth, not a performance." And this time, Anna didn't answer. The next 3 days were a string of meetings, tight as piano wire. Julian was no longer a distant guest. He was embedded in the project, at the head of the table, driving strategy, questioning ideas, delivering sharp surgical feedback no one dared to challenge. No one except Anna. "No," she said during a Wednesday afternoon session, voice even but firm. "That angle might look strong on paper, but it lacks emotional connection. It feels cold." Julian looked up, his eyes sharp as glass. "Could you clarify with specifics, or is this just a matter of personal discomfort?" Silence fell across the room. Anna didn't flinch. "My input is based on user behavior and data insights, not personal discomfort." She met his gaze. "You know that." The last sentence wasn't persuasion, it was a reminder, a silent dare. Julian tilted his head, a faint curl at the edge of his lips. "Then we run an A/B test. Let emotion step back. Let outcomes speak." After the meeting, Anna gathered her notes quickly, ready to flee, until his voice stopped her again. "You're avoiding me." She turned, eyes glowing with restrained fire. "I'm working, not avoiding." Julian stepped closer. "Every time I look at you, you turn away. Every time I speak, you're the first to push back. If that's not avoidance, what is it?" Anna gave a soft, bitter laugh. "Maybe. It's me maintaining distance, to remind myself this is work, not a dance floor." He didn't argue, didn't smirk, just looked at her. "I don't know how to handle this," she admitted. "I'm not used to feeling this much." Then, having to switch it off? Julian nodded. "I get that, but I don't want to switch it off. Not completely." She stepped back half a pace. The thing is, I have to. I don't have your privilege, Julian. If I misstep, no one's there to catch me." The words, blunt, honest, made Julian pause. She turned to go, but this time he stepped forward, stopping her at the door. "Then don't dance alone," he said quietly. "If you fall, I will catch you." Anna looked at him for a long moment, said nothing, then walked past him, out the door, leaving the air behind her heavy with everything unsaid. In the days that followed, Anna tried to keep her distance, to separate emotion from work. But the more she tried, the harder it became to breathe. Julian said nothing, no texts, no private emails. Until Friday morning, when a quiet subject line appeared in her inbox. No flair, no sweet words, yet it made her pulse skip without warning. From Julian West. Subject: a necessary conversation. Body: I'd like to speak plainly about the project and the parts not listed in the proposal. If you're willing, I've reserved a table at Osteria del Lago. 7 p.m. tonight. Consider it a meeting. No tie, no masks. She read it twice, and for reasons she didn't understand, she replied, "Okay." The restaurant was tucked in a quiet alley near the marina. Warm, candlelit soft guitar in the background. No loud voices, no dramatic gestures. Julian was already there. No tie, no blazer. When he saw her, his gaze wasn't businesslike, nor romantic. It was calm, real. "Thanks for coming," he said as she sat down. "You knew I would?" "I hoped." They ordered wine, shared a plate of pasta. No laptops, no slides, just two people, and a silence that didn't feel empty. "You're hard to read," Anna said, sipping her wine. Julian gave a faint smile. "I used to think I was obvious, until I realized I never let anyone close enough to find out." She tilted her head. "Why not?" He looked at her, and for the first time, he dropped the calm exterior. "Because I grew up around people who didn't see me as a child, just a responsibility to manage." A pause. "My father was a man of results. My mother, a master of control. In my house, feelings were translated into grades, into awards. No one asked what I felt. Only, 'What did you do today to deserve your dinner?'" Anna said nothing. For the first time, she didn't think he was cold, just long untouched by warmth. Julian exhaled. "I used to think emotion made you weak, until I stumbled into an old theater downtown. It was a small production, no-name actors. But I sat there for 2 hours, breathless, watching someone cry, then laugh, then collapse, without needing to be understood or applauded, just because they had to feel it. I left that night knowing emotion has weight." He looked up. Their eyes met. "You reminded me of that?" Anna swallowed. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, gently but deep enough to shake everything she'd buried. They left the restaurant under a dark sky. Julian didn't offer to take her home, didn't assume, just smiled. "There's a place I want to show you, if you have time." She nodded. They stopped in front of an old theater, iron doors slightly open, no lights, no signs. Julian pushed the heavy door inward. Inside, the dust glowed under broken skylight beams. Cracked seats, splintered wood, but in the middle, a stage still stood. Julian stepped up, silent. The light caught the side of his face. Anna sat in the front row, watching him. "This is where I remembered I was alive," he said. "Not for money, not for power, but because I could feel something with no reason attached." She stood, walked up, faced him. They looked at each other, closely. No words. He raised a hand, gently touched her cheek. And Anna didn't move away. She let her hand find his, and they kissed. Not fast, not frantic, not full of promises, just honest. Because sometimes There are moments between two people that don't need a name. The next morning, Julian didn't show up to the team meeting. No email, no text, no mention of him. Anna tried not to care. She forced herself to work, focused on design boards, client feedback, campaign timelines. But every time she turned toward the empty seat beside her, the one he usually filled, her chest tightened with the smallest ache. 3 days passed, then 5. Julian had disappeared. When she asked the project manager, the answer was brief. He's handling some internal matters, still tracking things, just not hands-on anymore. That coldness, the very thing Julian had tried to escape during their last conversation, was now back on him like armor. The following week, Anna received a special email from Julian himself. Subject, project transfer, sterling campaign attachment, signed documents officially withdrawing him from the project and handing over full creative control. To her. No long note, just one final line. I don't want to be the reason you stop growing. This is your project. Entirely. She read it again, then again. Her hands trembled. No goodbye, no explanation, just a silent, complete retreat. And in that silence, Anna realized he had walked away without giving her the chance to say goodbye. That afternoon, she sat alone in the studio. The screen in front of her glowed bright, but none of the words made sense. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She just felt hollow, like someone had placed a block of ice in her hands, then walked away, leaving her to hold it, unsure what to do. Julian had been real. So had the feelings. But now it felt like she had dreamed it all and woken up alone. She closed her eyes, swallowed the tight knot forming in her throat. This wasn't the first time she'd been left behind. But this time, it hurt more. Because this time, she had let herself believe it might be different. The rain came without warning on a Wednesday afternoon. Summer rain, soft, quiet, not loud or violent, just falling gently like the sky was trying to wash something old away. Anna had just returned home. She walked down the empty hallway, shoes soaked, jacket damp. All she wanted was a hot shower and to forget. Then, she stopped. Outside her door, through the foggy glass, stood a figure. No umbrella, no movement, just standing there, as if he didn't feel the rain. Julian, his shirt clung to his chest, soaked, hair damp, face wet, not just from the rain, but his eyes. They were the clearest they'd ever been. Anna opened the door. The rain blew against her feet. She said nothing. Julian looked at her like if he didn't speak now, he might never have another chance. I was wrong, he said, voice hoarse, part cold, part something caught in his throat. I thought stepping back would make it easier for you, give you freedom, but I was wrong. He took a breath. Rain poured down his shoulders. Neither of them moved to stop it. I love you, Anna, and I can't pretend not to care anymore. She stood there, cold, stunned, and somehow completely alive, as if the words had struck something sleeping inside her. She stepped forward, then again. Her eyes were glassy. And then she cried. Not graceful, not poetic, just raw, aching sobs that broke past everything she'd held inside. Julian stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her. He closed his eyes, holding her like he was afraid she'd vanish if he breathed too hard. She buried her face in his chest. Rain soaked them both, cold, but no longer alone. They said nothing else. They didn't need to. The rain kept falling, but the distance between them was gone. As the rain began to fade, they stood there, soaked, silent, but no longer distant. For the first time, there was no pretending to be strong, no reading between lines, no saying what was appropriate, just two people, facing each other, no defenses, no more running. And in that quiet moment, they both knew. At last, They were brave enough to face how they truly felt. 6 months later. San Francisco in the fall. Clear skies and crisp air, the kind of weather that makes everything feel softer, more certain. Anna stood on the rooftop of an old building overlooking the bay. City lights shimmered on the water. Beneath her feet, the worn bricks made a gentle crunch with every step. Julian appeared behind her in a gray sweater and that same quiet smile. "Remember this place?" he asked. She nodded. "Where you told me I reminded you that emotions have weight." He stepped closer, took her hand. "I still remember." Then, without fanfare, no kneeling, no rehearsed words, Julian pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. There was no grand gesture, just a quiet offering, as if he was handing her not a ring, but his whole unguarded heart. "I won't promise it'll be easy," he said, eyes steady. "But I promise not to disappear, not to run. I'll stay." Anna looked at the ring, eyes misting. "Well, do you agree to marry a stubborn, sometimes arrogant woman with a whole universe of emotion packed inside her?" Julian smiled. "I fell in love with all of that already." The wedding came a month later, on a small hill under an old oak tree, with only a few close friends and the gentle light of late autumn. No fancy dress, no booming music, just peace, as if they had finally arrived exactly where they were meant to be. Anna looked at Julian hand in hand, voice soft but sure. "I won't run anymore, because now I know home isn't a place, it's a person." Julian squeezed her hand gently, and they kissed. No fireworks, no applause, just two hearts, no longer running, no longer afraid, finally choosing each other. And in that quiet, a lifetime began.